The government of Uganda has been hosting thousands of refugees for over 50 years, mainly due to political instability in her neighboring countries. Such countries include the Democratic Republic of Congo, Rwanda, Burundi, Kenya, Somalia, and of recent the world's youngest nation, South Sudan. Protection and management of refugees in Uganda is governed by the Refugee Act of 2006, which is a domestication of the international law related to protection of refugees. The Minister for Disaster Preparedness and Refugees and a technical team headed by the Commissioner for Refugees under the Office of the Prime Minister implement the provisions of the 2006 Refugee Act.
In the world today, there are so many conflict centers, particularly in the Middle East, which is generating large numbers of refugees. We have been hosting refugees for a number of years, and currently we have close to 500,000, 500,000 population, which is more than, is close to 1.5% of our population, the population of this country, because we have, Uganda's population is about 35 million now. So when you host 500,000 refugees, is more than close to 1.5% of the people living in our territory are refugees.
Although the refugee phenomenon is meant to be short-lived, the situation in recent years has seen the number of refugees in Uganda increase by tens of thousands per year amid dwindling resources from a number of international refugee assistance organizations and agencies. For instance, in December 2013, when the influx of South Sudanese refugees in Uganda started, a total of 144,602 have settled here to date. This year alone, about 3.4% of the resource requirements have been allocated by UNHCR for the environment sector, which is too little to address necessary interventions towards environment rehabilitation.
We have a budget here at the Office of the Prime Minister that is meant to cater for the monitoring aspect, monitoring how the refugees are settling in, provide for food for the initial period, providing for health and sanitation as utilities, because you need medicines, you need sanitation, you need water provision. So all those things constitute what the total contribution of government is. Now, when it comes here, if I'm to come now home at OPM, what we budget for item under refugee is no longer big, because we have given all those other things I've told you. It's not big enough to cater for other extra needs. So yes, the budget is there, but the nominal figure remaining for doing monitoring, for doing environmental protection is small, after we've spent so much on the initial settlement package, so to speak.
The refugees exert a lot of pressure on the country's economic resources, security and health systems, as well as posing a serious strain on the environment. They cut down trees to access fuel wood and poles for house construction, among others.
We are embarking on what we are calling a settlement transformation agenda. We'd like to have targeted interventions to specifically address effects of environment degradation. And as of now, with UNHCR, we've gotten a fully fledged focal person for environment with UNHCR. We've set up a team as OPM, which is moving around the settlements to identify the gaps and come up with a report on what the intervention should be in the environment sector.
Although Uganda is not new to hosting Sudanese refugees, the year 2013 was a turning point due to a civil war in southern Sudan that saw an influx of over 20,000 refugees cross to Uganda. Most of them were received through refugee settlements, mainly in the border districts of northern Uganda and West Nile. Already a sizable chunk of vegetation cover in the various settlements has been cleared to pave way for construction of temporary settlements to accommodate the new batch of refugees from South Sudan.
From 2013 December to date, we've received over 24,000 new arrivals, plus of course the original or the caseload, the 4,500. That takes us to around 38,000 refugees.
Such a population causes a strain on almost everything, including the environment. People have to cut down trees, searching for firewood, cutting down trees to get construction materials for their shelters, much as UNHCR provides the poles for the construction of the shelters, but the poles are not enough for some individuals. So they have to strain on the environment. So significantly it affects the number of trees or the vegetation cover.
In Adjumani district, where the biggest refugee population of South Sudanese refugees is, over 15 million trees have been destroyed in the last 20 years, and only 900 hectares of this has been replaced. Therefore, close to 13 hectares of land that has been degraded needs rehabilitation.
As far as trees or vegetation is concerned, we needed up to 14,000 hectares of land to be rehabilitated. When we calculated how much fuel, how much poles the refugees are using for construction, and also how much land they have for cultivation, we shall realize that a total of about 15 million trees have been destroyed in the last 20 years. And about only 900 hectares of this has been replaced, according to the figures that we have.
This is Maji Refugee Settlement, located in Adjumani district in West Nile. There are over 5,000 refugees settled here. 41-year-old Angelina Foni is a refugee in this settlement. She has lived here since the 8th of February 2014. She says that at the time of arrival, she was allocated a plot, which she cleared of trees with her 5 family members to put up a shelter. Angelina also confesses that since firewood is her main source of fuel, she has no alternative but to cut a few more trees to replenish her stock. She's also pondering burning charcoal in preparation for the coming rainy season.
Zina ladile joisuke ndamare rare ani no simama kana igwe mama ado makwa na igwe ma dia gawa do makasira amala si joike mu korokoro mani jozi yose kole makana me burama ba adu driga atebele biri driga mata dia sene.
Angelina is not alone. Several other refugees from various settlements do even worse, engaging in activities such as bush burning during the dry seasons. Hectares of forests are always set ablaze in a bid to have access to more land for cultivation, since most of them practice and live off subsistence agriculture.
They have no other alternative sources of energy at household level, apart from cutting trees and getting firewood and what. So that is one of the major challenges.
The lax management of waste disposal is another big challenge that may have a far-reaching negative impact on both the health of the people in the settlements and the surrounding environment.
Currently, where they are in the settlements, around the marketplaces, a lot of waste is there uncollected. There's a problem of poor sanitation around the marketplaces, which have not been corrected yet. Although at their individual household levels, they have latrines, but we think at institutional levels like markets, something has to be done.
In addition, competition for the available resources such as water still remains a big challenge as it instigates conflicts between the refugees and the host communities.
Remember, in these settlements, we have got the nationals and the refugees as well, and they live alongside each other. But the challenge we are facing is how do we make sure that the nationals, the host community, get services, share the same services that we are meant for the refugees. And we've had situations of fighting over water points, for example, the boreholes, because if you put up a borehole, you'll not stop the host community from accessing this borehole. So sometimes the refugees feel that this water is theirs and therefore nationals shouldn't. So there have been some fights which definitely we struggle to control, but they happen once in a while.
However, amid all these challenges, the government of Uganda, through the Office of the Prime Minister, has spearheaded ambitious interventions to mitigate the effects of refugee activities on the environment. Tree planting is one basic intervention government and other partners are encouraging to help save the environment in the refugee settlements and the host communities.
With limited funding we have, we are trying to buy tree seedlings and planting them in the various settlements. We are talking about peace building in the settlement transformation agenda to reduce on the levels of conflict. Some of these areas you've been to, there are woodlots, for example, that were planted long ago. You find landlords, some former landlords saying these are my woodlots. The refugees want to get to them, the locals want to get into the woodlots. You are always trying to protect these woodlots because at the end of the day they are windshields. They help in regenerating water in the atmosphere that is changed into rain and so on. So we hope, if given opportunity and resources allow, this targeted environmental rehabilitation will be achieved.
Other interventions include tree marking, involving the refugees in forest farming activities such as apiary, as well as massive mobilization on environment education amongst all age groups of refugees and host communities.
Besides tree planting, the most important thing is to give environmental education to the community or to the beneficiaries. And then things like the sanitation, the waste disposal, they now become subject of that sensitization. And the way I see it, the water and so health receive a lot of support. They receive enough support actually compared to environment, but they don't address that element. And there are things to do with the waste disposal, camp cleaning, hygiene. All those are covered under water and sanitation, and those receive enough support. But this element, this part of environment is what normally doesn't receive enough support.
Also, most of the refugee homes have been encouraged to use energy-saving stoves to curb tree cutting and destruction of the vegetation cover. Working with various international and local partners, the Environment Department has recommended massive tree planting, provision of poles for construction, provision of energy conservation alternatives, tree marking, provision of clean water, and construction of pit latrines, as well as sensitization of the entire community as sure ways of conserving the environment.
My priority will be having enough planting material, or facilitating me to get enough planting material for the people. And then also to make what is planted it survives, and that is what we need. What I mean by saying that they need a constant extension service or advisory service. If I can be facilitated to do that, that will be the best.
Although the influx of refugees in these settlements has been seen as having a negative impact on the environment, some partners in the struggle believe that refugees can be a better driving force for environmental protection and conservation only if they are involved in the campaign to protect the environment.
In many cases, the refugees can also be the driving force of environment protection because many of them have already established fruit trees, and that is a contribution. So they are not necessarily bringing in negative impacts to the environment, but also they are contributing to environment conservation, and they definitely have to be part and parcel of the campaigns to protect the environment.
The government of Uganda is therefore appealing to the donor community and other partners to provide requisite resources to support the following urgent environment interventions in the refugee hosting districts. Restoration activities on the environment to ensure rehabilitation through the planting of fruit trees and other indigenous tree species, developing alternative sources of fuel such as the making of charcoal briquettes among refugees and host communities, environment education and awareness, as well as climate adaptation and change in addressing food security among refugees and host communities.
Any form of support for the management of degraded land, to restore it to its, and to plant trees, and to also sensitize communities, both refugee communities and the neighboring communities, on environmental issues. It would be very, very much welcome.
My request is that really let the world not forget that Uganda is hosting this large number of refugees. We are suffering. We can't turn them off, because the alternative would be chase them back to their country so that they don't destroy our environment. But you see, that would not be humane on our side. So we keep receiving them, and we request that the international community, or those really with soft hearts, come forward and help our country, help the UNHCR, which is now cash trapped because of the magnitude of the problem of refugees they're facing globally, and to help them so that together we can at least help these unfortunate human beings who are leaving their countries, not voluntarily, but because of challenges they face in their countries.